All right, so overall, I would say that this was definitely one of the more challenging projects that I've done. As I mentioned in the other video, I've never really done any black powder work. I've done very, very limited woodworking. So the combination of the two was kind of a daunting task to begin with. I've never really used inletting black. I've never done any hand carving with wood, and my file work is mediocre to say the best. So this lab itself taught me a great deal. It taught me several things that you can still apply to modern firearms. A couple things that really jumped out at me, just to cover from the muzzle loader itself, was the hand polishing of the metal pieces. Now, if I get in here close, you can see a little bit that my hand polishing, it's not terrible, but it's not great. You can still see some of the scratches. You can see that they're still only going in one direction. If I were to do this again on a modern firearm, I would definitely want to take that to a higher grit, a finer grit rather. I would want to go more to like the 600 or even greater, just to really make sure that the scratches on the metal really were finer and not as visible to the naked eye. I'm happy with the first attempt at this because, as you can see, I mean, overall it's got a nice, let me pull that up so the light catches it a little better. It's got a nice shine in the light. It's got a nice polished look to it. Most of the pieces turned out pretty well. The trigger guard itself, nice and shiny, but it definitely could be a little bit more refined, which is something that I will need to work on. Another thing that really I kind of had to learn on the fly and definitely would apply to any modern firearm that has wood components was when I had to drill for the barrel tenons. If you look at the wood right here, you'll see on this side how the wood definitely has that huge noticeable damage, and on the other side as well, right here, you'll see how the wood is a little deformed as well. What that was the plastic pin that is inserted through those holes that were drilled that lined up with the barrel tenon, going in slightly bent and at an angle, and being driven through and catching just the lip of the inside of the wood and actually driving the wood out and splitting it. Now, that caused me to have to refinish, to take those chunks out, to wood glue them, to apply a little bit of epoxy, to put them in these C clamps here to hold that wood down, to apply pressure to keep it in place, and then resand that part of the stock just to get it to even this degree of uniformity, which it was much more noticeable with jagged pieces sticking out and not being flush at all. Again, this is a first attempt. Were I to go back and do this on a customer's gun, if they brought it in, I would definitely have to figure out ways to apply a little bit more epoxy, get the seams on this a little bit less noticeable, a little bit more flush, see if I could do something to clean that up so it's not quite as visible to the naked eye. Maybe perhaps even after getting it pushed down and applied, putting the pressure on the clamps, figuring out a way to sand it a little bit smoother so the lines didn't catch as much. Now, I will say that the stain I used did darken up those lines a little bit, so I almost feel like if I were to go back and sand it so that the lines were slightly less deep, that the stain might not fill those in as much and make it quite as noticeable. As far as the overall finish of the gun, one thing that kind of jumped out at me to decorate this further or to enhance it, to customize this and make it a little bit more unique to me, is I'm toying with the idea of checkering it. Now, I did the stock checkering lab just before starting this class, and I thought it was going to be easy, and I was wrong. I would very much like to say that I have skill in the stock checkering, but as you can see, this is my stock blank that was sent to me by SDI, and if you look at that, my checkering is not great. There are parts of it, like there are a couple parts right in here where some of the lines are not bad, and then you get over here and it's quite obvious that the lines are going in multiple different directions. The checkering is of different sizes. What I'm going to do is I'm hoping that I can use the rest of this stock here right around the grip area, maybe some areas up on the fore end, sand those down a little bit and try and practice my checkering a little bit so that I can apply this to the muzzle loader and decorate it up a little bit. I'm particularly thinking about checkering maybe the grip area here, maybe doing a little bit of decoration here on the foregrip part of the barrel itself, just to give it a little bit more of a customized flare look, a little bit more personalized look. Part of that is going to depend largely, though, on whether my boss intends to still buy this. He's made me an offer. He told me he wanted to take a look after I test fired it and submitted my video. So I guess we'll see where that goes.